Hey guys, so I recently built a PC. In this video I'll talk about what you can expect building one at the end of 2022. So I'll start talking about buying all of the different parts. I would recommend starting off with the graphics card. Just look for a good deal somewhere either at Best Buy or on eBay or Kijiji for me. I spent a few weeks on Kijiji looking at 3070 Founders Editions, and one day on the weekend I found a listing for like $350 for a 3070 Founders, and right away I just went. After that I started looking for CPU deals on Best Buy, and since all of the new AMD and Intel CPUs came out, the old generation dropped in price significantly, so I just decided to go with one of those. And I know it's obviously not the best CPU you can go with. I got a Ryzen 5800X. The price was like 350 Canadian dollars for an 8-core CPU. That's like still pretty good nowadays. And after that, I'll just go down the list of what I got. A Beef 550 AMD motherboard, just like a standard one that has good reviews for like a pretty cheap price, like $120 or something like that, US dollars. For cooling, I went with the Noctua NFA 12x25. This is probably one of the best fans out there. It's actually the fan at the back here, as you can see, and I used the two fans that came with the case for the front airflow. And I just saw this recommended on the YouTube channel Optimum Tech, and he said it was a great fan, so I just decided to go with it. And it does seem to be really quiet and strong. For the case, I went with the NZXT H510 Flow. You could probably go with a smaller case if you're building something like this. So there is some extra space like down here, but it doesn't really matter. But yeah, like I'd recommend just going with a smaller case or this case, because this case is just really easy to cool. If you're a beginner like me, just go with something like this. And also just get an air CPU cooler so that you don't need to deal with any of the liquid cooling stuff. Unless you're going with one of the new CPUs, then you should go with water cooled, obviously, or liquid cooled, because you'll get much better performance on the newer CPUs. I went with 32 gigs of RAM because I found a good deal on Newegg. It was almost the same price as similar RAM that's 16 gigabytes, so I just chose to go with 32. I went with a 1TB M.2 SSD that I found on Amazon. It was like 10% off. And for the power supply, I went with an 850 watt power supply from ROG. And in total, this computer came to about $1,600 US dollars in total with everything. And then Windows did cost like an additional $150. After all of the parts arrived, I gathered them all at the dining room table and then started putting it together. It took me and my dad about 6 or 7 hours to actually fully assemble it. And then after that, it took us like another 2 or 3 hours to get Windows working because we were having some issues in the BIOS with some stuff that weren't letting us update to Windows 11. And like, I started at 10 a.m. and finished at around 6 or 7 p.m. So it did take quite a while. And yeah, I guess it will take less time since I've already done it now. But yeah, if you're building one for the first time, just know that like you might need to dedicate a whole day. I just chose Friday because I had a PD day and I didn't have anything else to do, so I just built it on that day. I started with the motherboard, obviously, and then put the RAM, the M.2, the CPU, all of that stuff on. I put the CPU cooler on, and then I plugged the graphics card in and plugged it into a monitor to see if it's working before putting it in the case, and it was. I opened up the BIOS and like all the temperatures were good. We were kind of nervous before that about putting the thermal paste on, because we were worried about putting the thermal paste on just because we thought it might be more difficult, or like you might need to know what you're doing to put it on properly, but we just like put on a reasonable amount like they showed in the videos, and then the CPU cooler just slides on top and it was like perfectly working. Like, I did check if you push down on it, if it changes the temperatures, and it didn't, so it seems like I put it on properly. So yeah, after I got it in the case, I got all the fans hooked up properly, and make sure when you're plugging in fans, check around the motherboard because there is sometimes extra spots where you can plug a fan in that might be easier to access than like having to loop the cable around the back and stuff. So just look around the motherboard. And yeah, that's pretty much it. After getting like all the cables plugged in, like the power supply in, I put all the panels back on, I installed the fans, plugged them all in. We got Windows on. We had to do some stuff in the BIOS, like changing a few menus, and then we got it working. And so after using it for around 2 weeks now, it's like absolutely insane compared to before. Like I was using a Radeon R9 360, which if you don't know what that is, it's like much worse than a 1050 Ti. And my sister has a 1050 Ti. I would borrow it once in a while. But yeah, it was much worse than a 1050 Ti. And going from that to a 3070 Founders Edition, it's like insane. Like, and with the new CPU, like my old CPU was an Intel i7 6th gen with 4 cores. It was absolutely terrible. Like, it was maxing out when I just opened YouTube or something like that. And now it's like at 15% usage when I'm playing games. So absolutely amazing. In terms of temperatures with this case, when I'm playing max throttle, like when the GPU is maxed out playing like Forza Horizon 5 or something on max graphics with ray tracing, the GPU stays under 70 degrees, at around 63 degrees from what I remember. And in terms of other performance that I've noticed, when playing Valorant, I get like 600 FPS consistently. And there's even times when I have Valorant and Forza open at the same time and I just switch between them when I'm waiting for my friends or something's loading. So yeah, absolutely super happy with this PC. I think I got an amazing deal.